Yeah, we're good.
Okay. And then
it's still recording for some reason. So if you think you can remember, you can turn off the recording now. You can pause the recording.
All right. And then I'll hit the broadcast as soon as it turns 10.
Okay. Yeah, we actually, our dog, her name's Viva. She's a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. Mm-hmm. And she barks at people until they pet her.
Are you serious? So she loves attention.
Yes. Yeah. But it like freaks people out sometimes. So we try not to just leave her. Like, so we took, our kids all do jujitsu. So last night I took them and Amy was meeting with a client. And so we left her there and she was barking. They had a 6-month-old and she was barking at the baby. She wanted the baby to pet her. It was so strange, but it freaked them out. And they had to like walk out for a few minutes. And then they came back. It was so weird.
I did not guess that from the way she is right now. She's like.
All right, I'm broadcasting now.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay, we ready to go live then?
Are you ready for Facebook then?
Yeah, I'm getting that right now.
Okay.
Tell us when it's ready to rock.
Yeah. Do you guys have any pets, Kesha?
We don't, because I'd be taking care of the pet. One of my sons in particular loves dogs and has been begging for one. But I want them to be a little bit older so that he can take the lead on the day-to-day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He promises, he swears he would do everything, but I know otherwise.
Our kids do pretty good. They feed her in the morning, but they can't take her out without
They can't walk her, yeah.
And yeah, we don't let them walk in the neighborhood with her unless one of us is with her. So, but yeah, she can kind of go in the backyard though.
Yeah.
Which is nice, but she prefers to go in the front yard.
She prefers the front yard.
Yeah.
So she can bark at people?
Basically, yeah. Yeah.
Hi. Oh, hi. My friend.
So we will be, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll go live in a minute.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about the homeschooling.
Yeah, we'd love to talk about it.
It's amazing.
It's
All right, we are live on Facebook now.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Hey, friends. So good to be back for Fundy's free webinar series. We're your hosts, Amy and Andy of Sunshine and Rain Photography. We're based out of Aurora Grande, California. Just a quick 10-minute drive to the ocean. And we are so stoked to be joined today by Kesha Lambert of Kesha Lambert Photography. Kesha is an amazing international wedding and lifestyle portrait photographer. She is also a top photography educator, an ambassador for SLR Lounge, a Fundy Storyteller, and she recently spoke at the Cookout in New Orleans. Yeah. She's here today to tell us about her top 3 ways to make more money in Fundy. So, hey, Kesha, how are you? Tell us a little bit more about yourself and about your business.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. So you touched on it. I'm a wedding and portrait photographer based out of New York. We work with, I have 2 associates on my team. We shoot average 60 to 70 weddings annually. I personally do 35 this year. I previously used to do between 40 and 50 and decided to get a better work-life balance and grow the team. We work with a lot of multicultural weddings, a lot of New York tri-state area weddings, but we also travel. So I do a fair amount of destination weddings and destination in other parts of the United States and out of the country.
Awesome.
Super great.
And how did you originally get connected with Fundy?
That is an excellent question. I believe the first time I learned about Fundy was in a Facebook group, and I cannot tell you which one it was because I don't remember, but someone was looking for recommendations for album design tools. And I learned about it in a Facebook thread, decided to check it out, and it was life-changing. It was life-changing. I actually am a person that does not love spending hours doing albums. I'm not like a design person. I love photography. That's the hat I love to wear. But I do believe that our clients should have their photographs improved. And so it was a necessary part of the business, and formerly something that was very painful for me. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I started using Fundy.
Awesome. And everybody, thanks everybody for joining us. If you have any questions for Kesha, let us know and we will pass those off to her. Kesha's going to talk to us about how Fundy allows it for her to easily sell via the online proofer. She's going to talk about saving time with quick album design and also selling prints and wall art, and how Fundy makes that easy for her. And we were chatting a little bit before we went live, and Kesha, you mentioned that you do about 80% of your design and 80% of your clients are remote. So tell us about how that works for you.
Sure, yes. So we have a fair amount of destination or out-of-state clients. In addition to that, we also just have couples that are very, very busy, and coordinating schedules becomes, to be in person becomes mission impossible. So the majority of my print and album sales do happen remotely. The process, it's something that I discuss with couples when we work together, that there is that option. And the greater majority of them opt to go through the album process and the print ordering process remotely. So a lot of our meetings are held similarly to this, with a video chat tool. I use Google Hangouts, screen shares. And then another part of the process is done independently, where the client kind of goes through the proofing process on their own. And I like this because it is convenient, and I am not a person that loves to sell. And so this is one of the benefits of having Fundy Designer and the online album proofing platform to use for these instances.
Awesome. So online proofer is great for letting your clients kind of get into that design approval process for you.
Yes.
And then I know you have an album design ready for us. Do you want to pull that up?
Sure.
And then we can kind of talk about how Fundy, your second point is how you can use Fundy to save some time designing. So we'd love to kind of look at one.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So this is from a recent wedding. And I don't know, how would you like to proceed? Would you like me to just kind of talk through?
Yeah, tell us about the couple, tell us about the wedding, and then let's kind of look through it.
Yeah, so this is a wonderful couple that I had the opportunity to work with this wedding season. Their wedding was in July. And the bride is Haitian. The groom is American. And so it was a great multicultural wedding. And I would consider them to be classic New York city vibe kind of couple. They put a lot of thought and care into their wedding. They put a lot of as with many couples, a lot of planning went into their day. A lot of personal touches went into celebrating her Haitian heritage, and a lot of care went into family was something that was extremely important to them. They had a lot of they had like a table at their wedding that was dedicated to family members. And so I knew for this couple that one, they would care very much about the pretty pictures, but they also would care very much about seeing certain people. I spent a lot of time talking to couples to kind of get glimpses of what makes them light up and what's important to them. And I definitely picked up that family was central for the two of them. And so, and the bride is glamorous. The bride and groom are both a glamorous couple. And so they care very much about showing their personal style. And so part of my process is I do allow the couple an opportunity to send favorites, but I tell them in advance that I'm going to design the album for them. And so if they do send it, that's fine. They don't have to. People are busy. Spending time to go through the images and make decisions can be painstaking. So I take that out of the process for them. And I just make sure that I collect a lot of intel about them and their taste and what they like before digging into doing the album layout.
Nice. So that's a pretty common question we hear from photographers, pre-designing and then allowing the couples to make changes and things like that. So since you spend that time really getting to know your couples and kind of knowing what they would want their album to look like, what would you say to a question like how often do your couples just kind of take the album as is?
I would say it's right. So in the past, one of the things I hated about albums was this part, the design, the back and forth, can I swap this image out? Can we make this change? I get a fair amount of meticulous type A personalities and they want things just so. And part of it, what helped me to eliminate a lot of that. So to answer your question, in short, I'd say it leans about 70% of people take the album as is, and they go through it mainly making minor changes, deleting, they might eliminate entire spreads or have a handful of changes. I get some couples that say, yep, it's a go. So, but I didn't always have that. And I think what helped with that was not only getting to know them and their taste and what matters to them, but also I use questionnaires to gather very specific intel about their design preferences. And I show examples so that before I dig into this, whether they like minimalist, whether they, all of these preferences I collect information about before doing this. But one of the beautiful things about Fundy Designer is that changes are pretty easy to make and on the spot.
Yeah, that's so true. Changes are easy to make on the spot.
When you have, so you said you do a questionnaire, is that something that you developed and then that probably makes it pretty easy for you because you have other people on your team. So you're all using the same questionnaire for all your couples?
Yes. I'm team questionnaire for a lot of things, not just for like planning for working with them with the wedding day, but just even finding out what their preferences in terms of lighting, aesthetic, or toning. And definitely when it comes to albums, that experience has taught me that some people have certain things will appeal to people to one couple that might not appeal to another in terms of design. And so, and the elements that you include in an album, you can't, I learned that you can't assume that someone wants their parents in their album or or that they want decor or detail shots. So I think a lot of the back and forth is the result of not gathering that information before going into the process.
That's a really good point. We have a question. Thank you for your question. Are albums part and parcel of wedding photography collections, or are they add-ons?
So for all of our collections, so just I'll give you a quick run through of how I approach quoting weddings. I have preset collections, and they all include albums, and they all include an engagement session. I do also offer an a la carte option, which is a design your own, build your own quote option. That one, at the very base of it, it does not include an album, but it does include a print credit. So I leave the option open for them to use it towards an album or prints.
Okay, awesome. So you mentioned how changes are easy to be made in Fundy. Can you tell us more about how Fundy helps you and your team design quickly and save time?
Sure. So first step for us is making sure that we have all of our cameras time synced, and all of the naming of the files, and making sure that like if I'm working with my team members on a wedding, that we are on the same timeline in terms of the camera timing. That helps in terms of when we're importing the files, because the auto design tool is pretty smart. You have the option to auto design, choose the design template that you'd like to use, and have it have the album designed in chronological order or in filing order. And so once you do that, everything falls in line. I almost always have to change the cover image, because if I design it in chronological order, it'll usually put like a getting ready photo on or something like that on the cover. But beyond that, it's a matter of clicking through it. You set it up, I import my photographs and click the auto design, and then it's just a matter of clicking through and spot checking and tweaking.
Fantastic. So easy, right?
Yes.
And then do you have, is there someone on your team that does that specifically, or do each of you handle the album for the wedding that you photograph?
Yeah, so I do have someone on my team that does a lot of the actual design. I do them as well. During busy season, I probably do less of them, but I do also do them myself.
Awesome. Very cool. And then could you kind of scroll through that so people can see some of the other spreads that you, awesome.
This is a tweaked auto design. And I know for them that and I actually have this preference as well, that they like the black and whites to be kept together. And so I did. One of the things I also do is give people options. So there might be some repeat shots in here. So there'll be like a color version and a black and white version of the same spread. This one I have to. And so this is
so beautiful.
So another question that we hear a lot in album design is the number of photographs per spread. So it looks like you have those limited to like 4 or 5 max, it looks like.
I'm a 5 or 6 max, depending on the count that I've imported. 6 max in a spread. Unless I personally think the images show better, but that's my personal preference. If, for example, I have a wedding that I find myself working with a higher image count, I might increase that. But typically I'm able to do the layout with 5 or 6 max.
Would you say this is a typical length for an album for you and your team?
So this is what I would typically present. This is the length that I would present to the client. And they start with a certain number of included. I used to do spread. A couple of months ago, I converted to doing selling by the image. And so they come to the proofing process with an allotment that is included. And this is over the included. And they kind of page through and choose what they want to keep. If I've done things, if I've spent time figuring out what the client wants, then they will definitely end up buying more.
What do you think the advantage is to selling by the photograph versus selling by the spread for you and your team?
I think for some people, it might just be the psychology of it. It sounds like less intimidating. I think I've just found that it works. It seems to go over better with couples, that format. The number is much lower than selling by the spread. So.
Awesome.
Great.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. It was really gorgeous work.
Thank you.
And then do you want to go out of the screen share?
Sure. Let's get out of here. We're back.
Hey. Awesome. Okay. And then the other point you were going to talk to us about
was upselling prints.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Tell us about upselling prints and what that looks like for you guys.
Yes, so I'm doing a lot of comparison and talking about it. So because I am averse to selling, I myself don't like to feel like I'm being sold to. So I think I approach my client relationships with that same mindset. And so in the past, I would send them their online gallery. There would be a time limit on it. And I still do this. There would be a time limit on it, and they can pick and choose at their leisure if they want to order prints. Well, now as a part of the album proofing process, I can present wall art to them. And being visual creatures that we are, human beings, it's far more compelling to see what the wall art would look like in a home environment than looking at it on a price list. And it's far more effective in terms of closing a print sale. And so after we're done doing the main album and parent albums, I will present them with wall art collections in Fundy Designer.
Nice. And is there do you typically use images of the client's home, or do you use just stock images to put the photographs on the wall?
Yeah, I use the stock. So I use the stock. What I do ask about is colors and tones. If there's nothing in stock that's close, I will use, there's a fair amount of like very, very neutral tone stock images in Fundy Designer. So I will pull all the grays, all of the gray tone stock images or all of the beige tone stock images and present it there. So it still gives them a visual of what it would look like in a home.
Awesome. And is there a particular style of wall art that you sell to your clients? What are your favorites that you sell?
Sure. I sell canvas wraps and acrylic and metal prints. Those are metal. I would say acrylic is probably the most popular. Everyone in canvas wraps, everyone loves a canvas wrap. So I also do framed prints, but the ready to mount canvas wraps and the acrylic print, ready to mount acrylic prints are what I present mostly.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's another question that photographers have pretty often, because they see the challenges of, doing a lot of destination work, not having clients see stuff in person, shipping stuff, inspecting products before they ship it, and all that kind of stuff. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, that is one of the unique challenges to doing things remotely is that there is that extra layer that you have to do. So the work comes to me, the albums come to me, and then we get it sent out to the couple. So sometimes, it prolongs the process, because instead of them meeting and coming in and walking away with their product, they're waiting out not only the print and buying process, but also the quality check and shipping process. And so, but I find that ultimately, once the client knows that their album is on the way, they've seen what it's going to look like in digital format, they're excited. There is the cliffhanger of when they actually see it. And sometimes because I'm not there when they're going to see it. That part is kind of a missing component when you do it remotely. But I often hear from them. I get an all caps lock email saying we got it, and so yeah, it's different. It's different.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. We have another question. Thank you again for your questions. These are great. The question is, what kind of questions do you ask your clients to inform the album building process? And do you show images that you think would look best for wall art or collages based on the questionnaire information, or do you ask for their favorites?
Sure. So I do ask for favorites, and I don't always get the favorites. So in terms of selections, I'll make selections based on what I think they'd like. And so the other part of the question was, I'm sorry, remind me, what was the other part of the question?
So what kind of questions do you ask to kind of help the album building process?
So they know what they're walking into.
So I know what direction I should take. So anything from, I have my category of questions that are just random, nosy, getting to know you questions that give me a little intel into their personality type, whether they're, really fluid and air-like, or whether they're very rigid, so part of my questions are very like getting to know you. And then I also ask very direct, literal questions. Do you like minimalist layout? And I show them an example. Do you like collage heavy? Do you like the look of collages? And I show them an example. Do you like color story? So I ask very specific questions related to design and show them a visual. I have this set up, and it's usually very helpful because you learn a lot. I learn what not to do immediately from asking both those sets of questions.
That's awesome. And the comment on the chat says genius. That's really smart. That's super smart. And then as far as the wall art goes, the second part of that question was, do you show let me see, hold on. Do you show the images you think would look best for all? You kind of talked about that a little bit, or collages based on the questionnaire information. While you're going through that process with them, if you know they really love a photograph, do you just put that into the wall art too? Or do you have that all prepped? Or how much play is there in that?
Yeah, and I should say this, I usually, even if they don't create favorites, I usually do have some indication of what photos they really love the most, because I follow most of my clients on Instagram. I stalk them a little bit. No, and then I can also, I can see what they downloaded and made as their profile picture, or what they, used to announce. So I usually have some hints at the ones that they might want to see on their wall, just from the fact that I'm pretty connected and tapped into the couples that we work with. And then if you ask the right questions, you have an idea. There's some there I think with being able to see it on the wall, it's so easy to swap them. I do have if you wanted to see one, I in the same project, I can share my screen. With it's so easy that even if I'm off the mark with what I chose to present to them, we can swap it out right away, like on the spot. So when we do like a Google Hangouts and we're screen sharing, if I, show them this and she doesn't love this, I can do, if they want to see, she can tell me, hey, I usually have the photos right down here so they can say, hey, can you swap that out? And so it's really pretty painless and easy and quick if I've missed the mark in terms of what I chose.
Nice.
And,
yeah, super fast.
And love playing around with it, with the arrangement.
Awesome. That's great. Cool. Well, we've had you for almost 30 minutes, so super thankful for your time. We did want to mention that people can connect with you on your website, which is KeshaLambert.com, Instagram at Kesha Lambert. And we mentioned before that you just spoke at the cookout. You want to tell us about that? How was that experience for you?
That was incredible. It's really the cookout that was the second annual. I spoke at the first and also at this one. And it really just has a different feel from any conference I've been to. Lots of camaraderie. It felt like the joke in the group is that, when we left, we're all cousins because it really just felt like family. People pouring into each other, sharing so much information freely, and getting to connect with the sponsors who were there with us in the classes, helping with lights, breaking bread with us. It was just a really, really great experience.
Awesome. Hi, you have a hi on the chat from Stuart.
Hi, Stuart.
And then, question just came in from Brian. How are you setting purchasing expectations to your couples so it's not super weird moment when you're in there designing pieces and they're like, oh, whoa, I didn't know that was going to cost, X amount of money.
So that is big mistake that I made very early on that, and I actually am still working on, because one of the things that I'm working on, actually current project, is getting more photos of product on my website. So I think, it has to be embedded in your brand message. That's something I learned from Michaela. She was so good to share a lot of tips with me. Michaela Jade, Fundy Storyteller Extraordinaire. But yeah, one of the things I'm working on is getting the product on my website. And in terms of managing expectations, getting out in front of it, I not only is it presented in the initial proposal, but throughout our conversations, I kind of mention it. I tell them, there's no obligation for you to purchase anymore. When they see this is what's included, and I tell them, a lot of people, but full disclosure, during the process, on average, people end up spending an additional amount, and I even give them a range, but you don't have to. So, I'm definitely even in the booking process and getting to know clients, no pressure, but definitely telling them and giving them ranges and numbers so that they're not blindsided, because that is definitely a mistake I made early on, was just, not just having this process and then them being like, oh my goodness, well, you've designed all these amazing pages and I want all of them and I only get like 20% of them. And so, definitely don't want to blindside people if that's the approach you're going to take.
So constant educating of your clients. We're going to photograph your wedding. We're going to make you an awesome album. It's going to, generally clients spend this much on albums.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of know right off the bat, like, is this going to be a good fit for me as a photographer, and stuff like that.
Right.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, I think that looks like we covered all the questions from the people who joined, and really thank you for your time. And you are also going to be speaking at Imaging, and you have a platform class at WPPI this year. What is your platform class? What's your platform class going to be about?
It's actually about this very topic about client expectations, conditioning client expectations. It's a talk that will touch on not only having successful relationships with clients so that they're happy and they have a great experience and increasing the likelihood of having a happy, long-lasting relationship, but also talking about how to pull the most out of your client in terms of one of the number one questions I get is, how did you get your couple to agree to do this? Or, how did you do that? How did, my bride would never do, brides I work with would never do this. And so I touch on how I get that level of trust and rapport with the client, what my process is.
Awesome. That sounds like a great
tips and tricks and best practices.
Nice. That sounds awesome. Well, thank you again so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Catch up with Kesha on our website and Instagram. And we're actually going to be here next week, Wednesday, with another webinar. So make sure you check the Fundy group for that. We're going to be joined by Anna of Sienna Photography. She's going to talk about her top 5 favorite features in Fundy Designer for increasing profits. So you don't want to miss that one. And you can, for any of the panelists and any of the people watching right now, you can catch this live on Facebook if you want to rewatch any parts of it. And you rock, Kesha. Thanks so much.
Yeah, we love you. You're amazing.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you everyone on the interweb for joining, for tuning in.
All right. Have a beautiful day, everyone. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, cousin.
Bye.